Hello everyone, we are back for another video. This video is a part of my courts series. This is the tarot court cards, and we are now discussing the suit of swords, and specifically the page of swords, the knight of swords, the queen of swords, and the king of swords. Please be sure to check out the prior videos and the subsequent videos that I'm recording for this series. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we've got the page of swords, the knight of swords, the queen of swords, and the king of swords. And the page of swords. The page of swords, this one is quick-minded, has an insatiable curiosity, and loves learning. The eternal student and a great problem solver. At times, though, this one can be a gossiper, and they may ask a lot of questions, and also they can lack tact. They do have the ability to put their emotions to the side and instead use logic. And they may have messages that bring forth important information to the querent. Sometimes it could be delayed messages. As you can see, this particular page is having to walk carefully with her open book, and this is the page of swords. So now we're moving on to the knight of swords. The knight of swords is extremely assertive. They're a great debater. They have the gift of gab. They love mentally exploring situations, and they can be quite intentional. They also can be really sharp with their words and have a potty mouth. Like, they are the brainiacs of all of the suits, right? Because they're air. Their energy, their element is air. And you're dealing with Aquarians, you're dealing with Geminis, you're dealing with Libras. And so they can have a potty mouth because they're quite smart. And it's said that people who can cuss really well tend to have a higher level of intelligence, or so I'm told. And I like to cuss on my off time, just so y'all know. And I'm an Aquarius. What else about this one? They're quick-witted, but at times they can be impatient and argumentative. They don't like to back down from a good argument, okay? And they can deliver the goods in an argument too. And they can also, just like the pages, they can deliver news or information with little tact. But they're highly logical, and sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need high level of logic versus a high level of emotions, right? And they are an intellectual. What I find interesting about this Knight of Swords, interestingly enough, in the Light Seer's Tarot, is how he's running away. And it's important to look at the directions. I didn't mention this in the other videos, but it's important to look at the directions that these knights are going. This knight is running, I'm assuming, towards their motorcycle, which is going to zip them away. And you can tell a lot by looking at what the courts are doing and directions that they are facing and what are they sitting on. Look at all those details for clues on how to answer your querent's questions, okay? So, yeah. Next up is the Queen of Swords. We've got the Queen of Swords. She is highly independent, okay? She is an observer, and she can be a bit jaded. She is straightforward, and she likes her alone time. She is strong and unapologetic. She offers spot-on advice, and she is super witty. But she's brutally honest, and she does enjoy nurturing study and intellectual pursuits. She is more rational than the other queens, but she can be critical and appear aloof and a bit distant as well as sarcastic. Okay. And finally, we have the King of Swords. So the King of Swords, he is authoritative and intellectual. He's wise. He is objective and fair. Think of, the justice, think of justice. You think of the King of Swords, okay? That mind over heart, he's always going to use logic over matters of the heart, okay, and over what stirs in his heart. However, he does set impossibly high standards for himself and others. He uses intellect to reason and to execute decisions, but he can be at times quite intolerable and rigid. And he is just, though. He is a just person, and we love him for his extreme logic side. He influences people with his words and his logic, okay? And his ability to think things through in a logical way, okay? And that's what we got for the swords. And another thing I want to mention here that I've mentioned over and over, I sound like a broken record, but it's important and it bears repeating. Find your way of how you're going to work with your court cards ahead of time. Figure out which ways work for you. Me, personally, I'm very flexible. It just depends on what the other cards are coming up in the reading to tell me whether or not this Page of Swords is actually representing a person or a situation or an event or messages or those things. But some people exclusively only work with courts as people, representing people related to the querent or the querent themselves. Now, let's go through and let me show you what I've been doing. So I've been picking up different cards to represent the energies and the people that we're talking about here, which is the swords, okay? So let's get to it. So here's the thing about the swords. The swords for me normally have light or strange hair, okay? Strange meaning maybe they have dreadlocks or locked hair or something very unique about their hair. Maybe they dye it. It's like a lot of bright colors. There's something very much about their hair, that's different. It can also include gray hair or white hair. And like I mentioned, dyed hair. They typically have dark eyes. They can also have dark hair too. I find that the swords can also have folks with light hair as well as really dark hair, black hair. Some and often they may wear glasses, and they typically are on the thin and tall side. And like I mentioned before, they could be Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. Okay, so bear that in mind. All right, so let's look at some of their positive attributes. They tend to be mysterious, radical. Some of them could be reserved. Sometimes they can be a bit off limits, and they like it that way. They can be a bit provocative because of who they are. Maybe they dye their hair, they have strange hair, or maybe they are provocative as just human beings, like their personality. They're super smart and intelligent. They're strong, but this resilience, being mentally strong, They can be aloof, mature, and this could also represent and embody an actual person, right? They are responsible, typically. They're honest, sometimes brutally honest. They can be seen as really deep. They are attentive and an observer. They're great at communication. They have a unique style about themselves, and they're highly independent. Okay? So these are cards that I use to play around with to get to know my archetypes here with these court cards. Let's see. Next up, you could have dark eyes, brown eyes. I also, just like with the wands, the swords sometimes can be ones that might embrace piercings. I used to have piercings. So they can have dark hair or black hair. Like I mentioned before, they may be someone that likes to wear glasses or sunglasses or eyeglasses. They like the look of it, or they actually need them. White or gray hair. They might be a bit eccentric. Different hairstyle, like I mentioned before. A striking appearance. They can be troubled because a lot of things weigh heavily on their mind. They tend to be thin. Again, thin. Colorful hair. And this is literally man for like King of Swords, young for the page, right? Or childlike for the page. Gray eyes. Woman for the Queen. Or elderly and mature for the King of Swords, okay? Now, we already went through those. I have to make sure I turn them up. Here's some not so favorable or negative kind of personality traits that they may have. Again, not taking life too seriously. We've seen that in some of the other suits I've covered so far. They can be judgmental. Immature, so we see that with the Page of Swords. They might have bad habits. They might be suffering from mental conditions that they need to self-medicate, and thus they have bad habits. They could often come across as preoccupied all the time. I know I'm accused of that. As an Aquarius, aloof. Again, there's that aloof card. Walls are up. As opposed to like some of the other suits that are wide open and receptive. Sometimes the suit of swords can be walls up. They can be a know-it-all. And they can come across strongly as a know-it-all. They can be secretive. They don't feel like they need to divulge it all. And they know how to hold their secrets. And, you would hope they know how to hold everybody else's secrets. Thus, they may have skeletons in their closet that you may not know about. They can also be ice cold when the relationship hits a rough patch. They're not the ones who are going to become super clingy. In fact, they're going to turn ice cold, which can also have a negative impact on a relationship. Remember I said they have a potty mouth? And yeah, they can be quite vulgar when they want to be. They shut off, even though they're great communicators. In the reverse position, if you saw this card come up, know that they might be struggling with communicating. Or choosing to not communicate, because that could be very much a conscious thing too. It may not be something that they're struggling with. It may be an all-out decision with the swords, these courts. In the reverse position. Now, in the upright position, typically you're talking about decisive energy. Indecisive would be the reversal of these cards, of these court cards. And because they have a lot on their mind, they can have a depressive vibe about them, okay? And finally, let's look at their places that they might be at. They might be homebound. Just like the Wands, they might be in the tattoo shop, but, they love to very much be expressive, and they might be also really good at doing tattoos and also getting tattoos. University could represent, the student in the Page of Swords, that eternal student. Online could represent those messages that we talk about, social media messages, etc. DMs, text messages, emails. Classroom, again, that student here. They might hang out at a cafe where they could be in solitude and thinking and people watching, observing. At the library, because they love studying in books and things that stimulate the mind. Ancient ruins, places that offer, history to dig into. Let me see with the ancient ruins card. Court, hopefully not as a defendant or something like that, but, court, maybe as a judge, a lawyer, a court reporter. Maybe they just want to sit in the, with the gallery. Maybe it just represents that that justice piece about the air suit. And finally, they love to shop at bookstores. That's what they love to do. So there you have it, folks. That is the sword suit. And I hope that you check out the last video, which is discussing the pentacles. And please, 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 I'm putting a lot of work into the series that I do to support learning about cards. So it would be so helpful if you would hit the like button on your way out. And also, if you want more content like this, or you just want to be a part of my little Abundant Life Tarot family, subscribe, because I've got more content coming for y'all. All right, guys, take very good care of yourselves. I'm going to see you all in the next video. Bye for now.